She walked into the room, confident and prepared, ready to lead. But in an instant, every eye turned against her. Whispers, stares, invisible barriers. Her authority was dismissed in seconds. No one knew why, yet the humiliation was undeniable. What she faced wasn't just personal. It reflected a system built to push people like her down. And just when it seemed she had lost everything, something happened that no one saw coming. How could one woman turn the tables on a world that tried to erase her? This is her story. It was a bright Monday morning when Aisha arrived at the bank she had worked at for years. Confident, prepared, and proud of her position as one of the few black executives in the institution, she carried herself with calm authority. Colleagues greeted her politely, unaware of the storm waiting just behind the polished walls. Outside, the city hummed with its usual rhythm, oblivious to the quiet tension building inside. Aisha's life had always been about proving herself, breaking barriers and rising above expectations. Yet, as she stepped into the boardroom that day, an invisible line she had never crossed before was about to be drawn, and crossing it would test everything she thought she knew about respect, power, and justice. Aisha entered the boardroom expecting routine reports and discussions. Instead, she was met with cold stares and subtle smirks, the kind that whispered she didn't belong. At first, she brushed it off. People can be difficult, she thought, but the signs kept coming. Every suggestion she made was dismissed. Every idea she shared was subtly credited to someone else. Her voice, once confident, began to tremble as invisible walls closed in. It started with small things. A colleague interrupted her mid-sentence, claiming to clarify points she hadn't questioned. A manager questioned her authority in front of the team, not with curiosity, but with disbelief that she could hold her position. Each act was minor alone, but together they piled like storm clouds. A relentless barrage of doubt and dismissal. By mid-morning, the tension was suffocating. Aisha tried to focus on the agenda to maintain her composure, but whispers followed her every move. Papers were shuffled noisily when she reached for them. Laptops closed abruptly as she walked past, eyes darting away to avoid hers. It wasn't just disrespect. It was a deliberate erasure of her presence. The humiliation wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. Every subtle slight cut deeper, and Aisha felt the sting of years of prejudice condensed into these few hours. Then came the meeting's breaking point. The senior board member, a man known for his rigid hierarchy, mocked her plan for a new community initiative, suggesting it was too ambitious for someone like her. The room tensed, silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Colleagues shifted uncomfortably, some avoiding eye contact, others smirking. Aisha's heart pounded. She felt the weight of generations of discrimination pressing down, a reminder that no matter how much she'd achieved, some would always try to push her back. She wanted to speak, to defend her vision, but the words felt trapped in her throat. Fear mingled with anger, a knot twisting tighter with every passing second. Could she fight this? Could she prove herself here in this very room? In front of the very people trying to diminish her? The air seemed thick with unspoken rules, invisible boundaries she was expected never to cross. And then, just as she braced herself for the inevitable dismissal, something shifted, a subtle glimmer almost imperceptible. The board member leaned back, overconfident, thinking the encounter was over. But Aisha's mind raced, plotting a response that no one could have anticipated. A reckoning was coming. The room was about to witness a confrontation that would change everything. The question now wasn't whether she could survive this humiliation. It was whether she could turn it into a force so powerful that no one in that room would ever doubt her again. And in that moment, every silent injustice, every whispered slight, every dismissive glance became fuel for what she was about to do next. The room was silent, every eye fixed on Aisha, yet none offering support. The mocking had escalated, comments dripping with condescension and questions, laced with doubt that no one else seemed to challenge. Her ideas were dismissed, her authority questioned, and her presence made to feel like a mistake. Every insult, subtle or not, landed like a punch. Aisha felt the walls closing in, the weight of every microaggression she had endured in her life pressing down, threatening to crush her confidence. Her heart raced. Anger, humiliation, and disbelief collided inside her. This was the moment, the culmination of every barrier she had fought to break. She could stay silent and let the injustice win, or she could act. Breathing deeply, she steadied herself, recalling every time she had been underestimated, every time she had been erased simply because of her skin, her gender, her presence. This wasn't just about a single meeting. It was about proving she could not be ignored, dismissed, or humiliated. Then, with a calm that surprised even herself, Aisha began to speak. Not with a timid explanation, but with precise, undeniable authority. Every word she chose cut through the room's tension, exposing the bias that had been hidden in polite smiles and silent judgment. She outlined her plan, her vision, and her achievements, each statement a testament to her competence and each fact a mirror reflecting their own unjust assumptions. Heads shifted, murmurs rose, but she didn't flinch. She had taken control of the narrative, forcing everyone to confront the reality they had tried to ignore. The air was electric. Aisha's eyes locked on the senior board member, the very person who had tried to humiliate her. For the first time, the room felt the weight of her power, the impact of her unwavering presence. Silence, heavy and undeniable, filled the space. The line had been crossed. The tables were turning, and in that moment, as the room waited for her next move, one question hung in the air. Could they accept her authority? Or would the system that humiliated her fight back once more? The room had shifted. What once felt like invisible walls pressing down on Aisha now seemed to crumble under the weight of her presence. Her colleagues could no longer ignore her vision, her authority, or her resilience. The very institution that tried to diminish her had been forced to see her clearly. For the first time, she wasn't just a name on a title. She was a force they couldn't erase. For Aisha, the humiliation lingered, a sharp reminder of the barriers she'd faced. But it no longer held power over her. What had begun as a moment of injustice became a turning point, not just for her career, but for the principle that talent and determination cannot be suppressed by prejudice. Every slight, every dismissive glance, every whispered doubt had been transformed into fuel for her triumph. Her story is not unique. Every day, countless people face invisible battles, subtle exclusions, and outright discrimination, often in places where they are supposed to belong. These moments expose the deep cracks in systems built to favor some and limit others. Yet Aisha's journey shows that even in the face of deeply entrenched injustice, courage and unwavering self-belief can shift the balance. So the question remains, how many more voices like hers go unheard? How many more talents are forced to fight just to be seen? And what will it take for all of us to recognize, challenge, and dismantle the barriers that persist in our workplaces, our schools, and our communities? Aisha's victory was personal, but her story is universal, a reminder that change begins when we refuse to let prejudice define our worth, and when we turn every act of injustice into an opportunity to rise, to speak, and to demand a better world.